the system of equations. We must deal with them all at once. Always looking for solutions. Positive outlook overcomes obstacles getting in our way, cause affects more than we can sometimes see. Things for what they
Hello, my name is Roy Simpson, professor of mathematics at Cosumnes River College in Sacramento, California. Now, this video you're about to see is one of my older videos. The quality is not the same as my new video series. My intent is to make a newer version of this video at some point in the future. However, I want to make sure that students currently using my Mathematics in Review video series have access to as much help as possible when it comes to prerequisite topics. With that being said, let's get started. So we'll start this off with a data graph. This is real data from the United States Census Bureau. It's the number of uninsured and uninsured rate within the United States in millions from 1987 to the year 2000. Now there's two things you should be able to do. Now, and the reason why I'm using this as my first example is because you should be able to read a graph. That's the whole point of this lecture, is to be able to kind of read a graph and interpret what the data on the graph is saying. And in this case, I'm looking at the fact that you have two different pieces of data represented on here. You have a number of an uninsured within the US, and then you have an uninsured rate. And by the way, these are health insurance. The number of uninsured is in millions, and the rates are in percents. So, for example, in 1990, there was an uninsured rate of roughly, it looks to me to be about a 13%, maybe 13.8%, somewhere around there. And in 1990, the number of people in America without health insurance was near to 35 million. Now we're going to go ahead and read a few things from this. When was the uninsured rate the highest? When was the uninsured rate the highest? So if you look through all this data set, there's two places where the uninsured rate looks to be the highest. This lower curve right here is the uninsured rate, and it seems to me that either here or here, they're both good candidates. I'm going to say that the one on the left is slightly higher, not very much higher though, but we'll say slightly higher. The way you read this is that you take that height and you go back down to the corresponding what we call the input, or the year that leads to that data. If this is 1999 here, then this must be 1998, and that's just judging from the fact that the scale on the axes, and by the way, this is called the horizontal axis, and the other one is called the vertical axis. So this one right there is called the vertical axis. And it seems to me that in 1998 we had the highest uninsured rate, so I'm going to say 1998. And how many Americans were uninsured during this year? Well, the number of uninsured is represented by the graph up above. So I will go ahead and try to climb this mountain here until I get to this point right here. So it looks to me to be between 40 and 45, and in fact we'll say maybe 42.5. Now when you read that 42.5, you have to include the units of the vertical axis, and the vertical axis, the units for it are right here. Numbers are in millions, so this is 42.5 million citizens, or million people. And again, this is from the US Census Bureau. And what's interesting about this is that you see that this is the highest, we're claiming that this is the year with the highest uninsured rate, but actually there are years that have higher numbers of people uninsured. And of course, that's okay because there's just, more people in the United States. So the rate might be the same, but if, let's pretend the rate's 10% and you only have 100 people living in the country, then 10 people are uninsured. But the rate's 10% and you have 1,000 people living in the country, then 100 people are uninsured. So same rates, but because the population is growing, so is the number of uninsured. You have to watch out for that too, because they'll say that in news reports, the number of people uninsured is growing in this country. Well, of course, because the uninsured rate is pretty level, and it's just the population is growing. That's pretty understandable. So don't be fooled by these stupid statistics and people in the news media who are willing to cite some shocking number, but in reality it's pretty typical and expected. Does the number of uninsured Americans ever decrease during a recession? Now, the stuff that's in purple is considered to be a recessionary period. So the question is, does the number of uninsured Americans, so the number would be the upper bar, does the number of uninsured Americans ever decrease during a recession? So let's look at this first recession here, and I see the number of Americans uninsured is increasing. Second recession, it's increasing. Third recession, it's even increasing slightly. So does the number ever decrease? Nope, it's always increasing during a recession. I haven't mentioned it, but there's this little gap here. The census is taken every 10 years, and sometimes they're a little bit off, and so they make an adjustment. And so that's what this break in the graph is for, is to take into account the adjustment. Let's see, during which years did the uninsured rate decrease? So we look at the rate and we're asking between which years did it decrease? Well, I'm looking right here. There's a rate of decrease. Maybe I'll use a different color pen for this. There's a rate of decrease right here. So this region right here, we have the insurance rate decreasing. If you look, there's actually a decrease right here as well, and maybe a slight decrease also right in this region, but I don't really see a major decrease anywhere else. So it looks to me about between 1998 and maybe the year 2000, which is right there, we have a decrease. 1998 to 2000, we have a decrease in the uninsured rate. And also, let's see, if this is 2008, this must be 2007, and this must be 2006. It looks like between 2006, so I'll say, and 2006 to 2007, we also had a slight decrease in the uninsured rate, but really a very minor decrease. By the way, I should probably mention that there are quite a few other questions that can be asked about any type of graph. We can ask during which year did you have the largest rate of decrease, or maybe the largest decrease in the number of uninsured. If you're going to do that, again, by visual inspection only, I would probably say if the question was during which year did we see the largest decrease in the number of uninsured, I would probably say that would have occurred between the years 1998 and 1999. It looks like that's the steepest decline. And a similar question could be asked about the largest increase in the number of uninsured, and this might be the largest single year increase in the number of uninsured, which is 91 to 92. So there's a lot of things that can be asked when you're given a graph in mathematics, but most of this doesn't involve any type of mathematical equations. It just involves interpretation.
Thank you for watching this review video. As I mentioned previously, it's an older video that will eventually be updated. However, it should get the job done for you. As always, this content should be prerequisite to the course in which you're currently enrolled. If you found this material unfamiliar, or if it was confusing to you, then I recommend you review any prerequisite material mentioned in the video. If you find you're continually having to research the prereq material here, you might want to consider speaking to your instructor about other course options. On that note, I sincerely hope these videos help you achieve success in your transfer level math and science courses. Cue the music.
It's the system of equations. We must deal with them all at once. Always looking for solutions. Positive outlook overcomes obstacles getting in our way. Cause affects more than we can sometimes see. Names for what they are and work together until you feel at peace. Says, listen close. Don't talk too much, that isn't kosher. You may really hurt inside. It doesn't justify you to speak too loud and cry.